So I have admitted many times my weird bias on avoiding the P2020s, but in the recent videos I acknowledged yes, they're strong, and I had my reasons at the time for not running them. And this was around the time where they did buff the spread. As an OG day one, I just love the skill expression of the R99, but let me further admit how wrong I am about the P2020s. I'll give an example. During a coaching session, we did a round or two of rank so I can give notes just on pacing. This current meta overall is way more aggressive, and the P2020s really reflect that. Check out these clips where I decide just to give them a whirl again. Right in front of me.
How much do you get?
Just 1 HP. Oop. Batting. Oh, they ported the other side. Actually, let me try.
Ooh. I'm batting. Backed up and batted.
I killed 2.
Yeah, I'm setting it.
Jesus, the P20s are busted. Good God. Yeah, I know. I was really wrong, but these things are just absolutely insane. Let me express my initial reaction why I have my bias. 1, they really act more like a shotgun. At close range, it becomes a bit of a gamble due to the spread. But when super close range, I mean, their DPS, it's not like it's going to impact it. But again, it really matters if you start to play further back. The further back you play, the more of a risk it has of missing those initial shots or potentially closing out that encounter. 2, the R99 at range provides better coverage for the initial damage if you can control the recoil. Again, I just love the overall skill expression of the R99 that it also has during a track and at long range, especially if you control the recoil. I just can't express it enough. At times you can miss it with P2020s if your distance is not ideal and if you get a bit unlucky, so I'm just kind of reinforcing that thought process here. And of course, it just has more consistent DPS, but again, you can solve that with the P2020s by just being right on top of them. And of course, number 3, this one is kind of solved, but it was my issue before, is finding attachments. I think the loophole has definitely been solved quite a bit by removing a bunch of items, and of course the arsenals of just getting a second P2020 is so easy, and having that DPS right at the start is really hard to deny. So overall, well, it's hard to deny them, it really is. I have them now in my rotation, but I do truly use them as a shotgun. I feel at times they're way more consistent now. That's because of the hipfire, you know, buff essentially, and the EVE 8, they pretty much nerfed it a bit more. And again, with a large magazine, it's just hard to deny that. So let's go in the range and let's kind of break this down a little bit further. Now what we're going to do is compare the damage. What I did is I put them in the best possible scenario. So in this example, I have it fully decked out and I have a boosted loader, which gives me 10 bullets. So that's 64 per. So that gives me 640 damage, right? That's the ideal scenario. Now with the P2020s fully decked out, let's take a look at how much damage you're able to deal. Now, which is interesting because the reality is that the EVE 8 technically has a higher damage potential fully decked out, but again, it goes to my argument as well, well, how often are you going to find a boosted loader? Which without the boosted loader, you know, subtracting an additional, you know, 128 damage, then yes, the P2020s ideally are going to dish out more damage, right? Now, if we back up even a little bit, you'll see the spread of the EVE 8 is a lot more dramatic than just having just a little bit of control over the P2020. So you really have to be close range, which is why I believe that the P2020s at least etch it out. And it becomes the same theory as well when we're talking about the R99. Like I said, it's just a natural bias that I have towards the R99. Doesn't mean it's justified in every scenario. These are just the guns that I prefer to run. Because if something's moving in front of you, you don't really ever have to worry about missing any of those shots ever. You're just not going to miss at this close range. And the same thing when it comes to the R99 is that it's going to have, even though it's got the highest DPS, it's going to be of a similar time to eliminate. What really starts to matter, even if a target is standing still, is thinking about this and saying, okay, well, if they're standing still and they're not moving at all, you know, what is that potential if I am this far away? Am I going to miss a few shots? How far away does that distance start to become impactful? Now, they've definitely solved this with a weapon spread, but you see how even if the crosses are dead center, you can get a little unlucky. That's just and sometimes you can get really lucky. Versus, let's say, when you run the R99. But that also depends on your recoil control. You'll see like how good were you with the recoil. Now, this is where the theory kicks in, because you're not ever going to be just standing out in the open at this distance spraying. So the idea is that you're going to be behind cover, right? And you're going to be going for a quick little pick, right? Just a little bit of the spread at the start. Versus the P2020, trying to go, but you might be peaking a little longer. That's the thing. I prefer the R99 with a jiggle peak and then going for just a little bit of a spray, because realistically, you're never going to be able to possibly get the full spray. What you're trying to do is just get that initial kick, right? That's why I always tell people to always learn the initial kick of whatever recoil that you're trying to control. Because if you just do a quick pick, that's fine, rather than going for a quick pick like this and then potentially missing, or even giving yourself best advantage and then having to look longer. So you're kind of looking for that quick peak where you can get that spike damage, right? Because, I mean, it would be ideal, yes, and then you move to another spot and then you go for the cleanup there, versus because everyone always breaks everything down and says, well, yeah, if you're just standing out in the open like this, you're trying to spread, you're going to run into a few issues. One, moving left and right, can you control that recoil perfectly the way it needs to be? Or how lucky can you get with the spread, even if you're trying to, and that's me not pulling down correctly, but if you're directly on it, how lucky can you get from the distance in doing that? Again, there's different, I guess the best way to slice this is that there's going to be different scenarios for each of these, right? A different scenario when you say, okay, well, I would prefer if I had mid to long range to control recoil, because you'd be surprised on how much you can actually control at a distance and still get 66 damage in, versus trying to do it like this, right? That's where I say the R99 etches out the P2020. And it's debatable when you have something with such a large magazine, which is why they gave the R99 an extra bullet, that if you're close range, what that TTK can look like versus a P2020, and they're pretty close. At this point right here, they're pretty close with one another. So just kind of adopt that, because if you treat the EVA 8 the same way, and you say, okay, well, you know, the EVA 8 gets etched out at, you know, at a certain distance, and the same thought process applies to the P2020 and the R99. But again, my whole shtick here is that it is hard to deny the power of the P2020s. Just make sure that you are using it for, like I said, I use it like it's a shotgun. Use it for its intended purpose, and if you're using it at a distance, you could get lucky like that, and sometimes you could get unlucky, and that really depends. And if you're just, maybe you don't have it with the R99, then, you know, to kind of avoid that as well. I really think that there's, with the meta, also, let me put this caveat, is that you can pretty much rock almost any loadout. It surprises me, even, I despise the RE45, but also just how good it can be. I missed a few shots there, so that's a poor example of how fast it can DPS, and that it can actually be good as well. But I still would avoid it. I'm not a big fan of it. But also, even with the alternator, with the current TTK, how efficient it can be. And it goes to the same thought process, right? Let's apply the same logic with my bias towards the R99, so then I'm, you know, proving a pretty decent point here. Is that you could say, okay, well, this is user control, but how long are you going to peak, right? Maybe you have an easier time controlling it. You could shoot all the way from that far away. That's also viable to say. So just putting that out there. I just felt it was really important, because so many of the loadouts are really impactful and powerful in the current meta. And it's important to diversify. And even if you hear any YouTuber or somebody tell you that a certain gun is good or bad, doesn't always mean that's the end-all be-all in the current meta. I would say in prior metas, that would definitely take a lot more shape, but you'd be surprised in the current one, what can be utilized and more flexible. Just find what's best for you and your play style, and what you're trying to achieve with that goal, especially with the loadouts. Like, I'll give an example. It's probably not going to be best, and we'll close out with this thought, to run an EVA 8 and a P2020, because they're kind of within that same distance. If you're a team that's playing zone and you got height and you're trying to shoot with a P2020 EVA 8, you're going to be pretty much useless. At that point, yeah, you're going to have to trade either the EVA 8 or the P2020s, depending on which you prefer. Maybe you have more ammo in, and let's say you, instead of running too light, okay, well, I will trade out the P2020s for R301, or you trade out the EVA 8 for a heavy gun to balance it out, or you realize everyone is running heavy and light, so then you trade out both those guns for, let's say, I don't know, a sniper or something. So try to play up your strengths and weaknesses of your squad. What is your intended goal? Are you pushing everything? If you're pushing everything and getting right in front of people's faces, then the EVA 8 P2020 definitely highlight that play style. So I hope that this added thought process really helps. I appreciate all of you guys for watching and supporting the channel. I've been really addicted to Apex Legends as of late. The new update has got me really excited with all those changes. I appreciate, again, all of you for watching. See you guys all in the next one.